we're gonna continue watching this from yesterday's stream,
This is
analyzing this here video.
wait till Will thing.
So she's
She's
examining
talking
the
about.
cause. Yeah,
Oh,
go
sorry. Go
ahead.
ahead. I had a delay. No, go ahead.
She's laying down the root causes of feminism, in which she's including, part of the root ideology, right? The ideas of, the 1900s, right? Of course, women's liberation, right? And she quoted some of their ideas, saying that they wanted to overthrow religion, right? Like, for example, one of the leaders of the, getting women to vote, I think it's like Elizabeth Katie Stanton or something she mentioned, right? Said like that she wanted to overthrow the Bible in society. So she's saying that these women were sort of atheistic in nature. And then she goes back to Mary Wollstonecraft, and she said she's reading the writings of Mary Wollstonecraft, and how she's talking about on the liberation of women. She wrote a article or something like that, right? I think it's part of a book or something, or on the vindication of the rights of women or something like that. But yeah, I have read part of that one too. But we're examining how far back she'll go and examining the root causes, because obviously, I think she's now mentioning people from the 1500s, some French lady, right? So I'm curious to see how far back she'll go in examining the root causes of feminism. So yesterday, as we were examining her speech, right, we were trying to see if some of the things she's saying are the actual root causes, or what could be the real causes, or or if she's identifying actual concerns. Like, for example, she said that men built the society, but for example, women sort of got power from men in that society through the Industrial Revolution and other things. But doesn't this mean that men aren't in control? Something else is in control, then either men or women, right? That's then responsible for the liberation of the women in that society, right? So there's a bunch of questions you could pose, see if her positions are strong or weak, and whatnot. So, of course, I pointed out a root cause in the ideas of John Locke, and of course, some of the concepts that go back further than that, right? Like, for example, Plato's Republic, right? So there's all sorts of ideas throughout history. I think she's going to bring it back to the concept of a goddess. But yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll play the video if you guys don't have anything.
Yeah, I do have something. Men are clearly still in control because they have the power to just take back control whenever they want, if they really wanted to.
Right. So then there shouldn't be any problems in her ideology, right? If they're still in control, they should be able to take back that control, as you said. So yeah, so that's a key problem, because then there is no problem essentially. Yeah, she's laid it out. Um, but yeah, so Neuro, you got anything? Or maybe he's busy. I think he's driving. But yeah. All right. Oh, whoops, it's paused.
And Clay Felker of the CIA.
Okay.
A great
I think she's going to talk about Gloria Steinem. Or
example of this is the first cover of Ms. Magazine. Now, Ms. Magazine was the first feminist publication that was.
I think she's going to show Kali, right? So I've devised a lot of art with Kali in it. So this is going to be fun because we're using Kali as a sort of motif. I'm drawing a motif of sort of Kali versus Lilith. And this is going to be a good thing going forward. And yeah. So
like really popular in America. There were feminist publications going back to the early 1800s, but this was like a mainstream magazine that was really pushed and became really popular in the 70s. It was founded by Gloria Steinem and Clay Felker of the CIA. So it had CIA funding and CIA backing, which is, people probably think that's super weird. Why would the CIA be interested in feminism? And it was part of a Cold War project called the Congress for Cultural Freedom. And this was an effort by the CIA to compare and contrast and distinguish us from Soviet Russia and say, we have this liberal freedom. They are, these old-timey oppressors, these communists. And it was kind of like an anti-communist propaganda to push the women's liberation thing. Like, hey, in the West, you can be free as a woman and you can't have that under the communists, which my second book is actually coming out later this year, is about that, about how actually the communists were the first ones to really push the feminism in.
So, I mean, it's pretty weird. Like, it's like the CIA is bad because they push feminism. And, and then they weaken their own society from within, right? So, obviously, this sounds a little ridiculous, right? But yeah, but I guess that's what she's claiming, that they push this propaganda, thereby weakening us from within to fight the Soviets. Seems like an epic backfire there, right? So yeah, so this is what she said, right? So anyways, but obviously, they're part of the sort of communist church over there in Russia, right? So then she's got to say, well, actually, I'm against communism too. So so I'll be soon writing a book about communism. Well played.
Government and make it legal under the Bolshevik regime. But that aside, the first copy of Ms. Magazine on the cover. Now, remember, you're trying to market this magazine to suburban housewives in America in 1973. And they picked the Hindu goddess Kali.
Ooh!
And she is a blue-skinned, kind of terrifying-looking Hindu goddess who, now I'm not saying this from the Hindu perspective, because I'll get Hindus that get upset with me and they'll message me, you're wrong about. No, I'm saying the
yeah, because I don't want to actually bring up the book, but like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's trying to say like, well, because obviously she's trying to convince Christians, right? So she's trying to say, well, this goddess is evil, blah blah blah, it's satanic. But the fact is that there's pretty much not that much satanic things about Hinduism. Like if you look at the moral systems of Hindus, right, they pretty much match that of Christians and Zoroastrians and Muslims, and and what's in the Bible. So I don't know. So a lot of that is a little bit of kind of painting with too wide of a brush, right, or so on and so forth. But yeah.
Most systems are similar, but they're taking money out of the church, and that's bad for some reason.
Right, they're grifters after all. Christian grifters.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing makes money like old Jesus, who said, give to Caesar's unto Caesar's, and then give to God's unto God. So God's making a lot of money, that's for sure. He's making more money than the state, for sure.
Yep, rolling it, and he doesn't need it.
Right.
From the feminist perspective in the 70s, they saw her as a vengeful goddess who only accepts the sacrifice of men. She, eats the blood of men on the battlefield. She is the dark mother. And so there's this picture of her with 6 arms, and in her 6 arms, she's holding a baby and an iron and a frying pan. And there's even like a baby in her womb. And on the cover, it's, one of the issues, it's talking about abortion is one of the article topics. So there's like this baby in the womb and she's dressed in like an apron. And so very bizarre choice, but what they were trying to get across is like,
I don't know. It's actually really opposite to that, right? Because I think like Kali and Shiva are specifically represented as like symbols of fertility or something like that. So I don't think it's about killing babies. It's about having sex and making a lot of babies. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that's a clever inversion, but yeah.
We're at this tipping point where we're going to choose whether we're going to be these domestic slaves who are just baby factories. Our life is not, up to us. We're subjugated by men and we're just forced.
I don't know. I'm kind of like struggling to see what this has to do with Kali, and I could see how Hindus would get offended at this. Like, so you just brought up Kali, like just to say that, I don't know, to say that she's aborting babies. Like,
It's
that's
a dog
totally,
whistle.
yeah, it's fake. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. It doesn't make much sense. Yeah, it's definitely some type of dog whistle.
To give birth and be chained to the stove until we die, or we're going to become vengeful like goddesses who get our revenge against the evil oppressive patriarchy. So I'm not saying Hindus believe this. I'm saying feminists use these angry, vengeful goddess archetypes as like a cultural weapon to push the propaganda. But if you do go back to ancient times, that was often the role of a goddess figure, was fertility, domination of men, or revenge of men against men through sex. So if you look at like...
So which one is it?
I
So
need a
which one is it?
citation for that. I need a citation for that because that would be cooler than what they're actually doing.
Yeah, but which one is it? Is it are they misandrous, or are they consorts of a male god who's much more powerful than them, and then also they are symbols of fertility? So that's not exactly getting rid of people or getting rid of babies. I don't understand what the fuck she's saying, honestly. I think it's the opposite of what she's saying, for real.
Even like a lot of the ancient Roman gods, a lot of the ancient Greek gods, and you read the mythology, there's often this, the gods are always fighting, right? They're always at war. Pagan gods are always fighting with each other, kind of like humans. And the way that the female goddesses usually get back at the men is by, eating their offspring, seducing them, using their sexuality as a weapon to get revenge, things like that. And so the feminist movement...
I don't know, like the male, like Saturn's eating his offspring and stuff. So I don't know.
And Zeus is screwing everything that moves.
Yeah, so I don't think the males are specifically portrayed different. I don't know. I'm not really seeing. I mean, yeah, everybody's fighting each other. She's right about that. It doesn't make sense. If there was gods, you'd think like their world would be more ordered than the human world. But it seems like in the pagan stuff, it's like they're just as fucked up as the humans, which seems kind of odd. It's kind of awkward. But
well, maybe what our opinion of order is just wrong. Maybe they are more ordered, but what we think is order is incorrect.
Yeah, that might be true, Hank. Yeah, good point.
Movement loves that. They love reading that mythology and turning it into like a feminist cry to battle.
There is a hidden second layer of the crypto market. Most investors will never find.
There's a
market
hidden
will ask-
layer? A hidden layer?
Yeah, your book spends a lot of time on three ancient goddesses, specifically Lilith, Kali, and Inanna.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about Lilith and Inanna and kind of like how they shaped modern feminism?
Yeah. So Inanna was one of the most...
Snip, snap, patty, whack, give a dog a bone. We're back at square one with Twilight Son of Lillian, because this is another thing where she's applying across a bunch of different, so now she's almost like she's talking about archetypes or something weird like that. Like what, how are you combining all these different goddesses from all these different cultures? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's kind of like it's like Zeitgeist movie type of weird shit. Like, she's put together this like Acharya-esque type of Christ conspiracy model where it's like, it's like, is she I don't know, is she going across a bunch of different cultures and combining a bunch of religions into some weird view? I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I'm just being honest. From what I understand, their main goal is to amalgamate as many religions together and create a witch-like occult mentality.
Yeah,
and Islam and Christianity is at the forefront of the attack, allegedly. Those two religions are the ones that stand in the way the most, is Islam and Christianity.
well, most people they got the most people, highest number of people, because they got like 1 billion each. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah. So what she's doing is called syncretism, but there's you can make an argument against even synchronizing different versions of the same God. It really depends on the context whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like she's doing some type of like a pseudo syncretism to get to the answer of what this god represents, where she's painting different goddesses across cultures as an archetypal symbol for women's liberation. Not sure if that's a cogent analysis of these gods, but yeah.
I don't know, but it is a very common writing style of modern writers like Robert Greene. He's syncretizing a whole bunch of things, but actually doesn't make sense when you take a look at it closer.
Yeah, you're right.
Important goddesses in ancient Sumeria. She was kind of one of the top tier ones. There was a lot of temples built to her. One of the oldest like goddess stories that we have, one of the oldest archetypes that we have. And something you'll find with her that's pretty common across all of these goddess archetypes is that they're a mother, so they give life, they give birth. They're usually also fertility goddesses. They use sexuality, like I said, as a weapon or as a way to get power or control, because they don't have the monopoly on force. The big male gods are stronger, physically or whatever it might be. And in ancient times, when you were worshiping one of these goddesses like Inanna, you would usually go to a temple prostitute. And there was this sense that female sexuality was like a way to connect with the divine. And so prostitutes were often venerated, at least temple prostitutes, maybe not street prostitutes, but temple prostitutes were venerated. They were.
But yeah, it's weird because like that was true in Corinth, right? Like where Paul wrote Corinthians, like in that temple, they had like women that were like temple prostitutes that you could go and visit. But like this isn't true across ancient times. Like, and most men did not have to rely on temple prostitutes to get sex. Like, that's not actually true. Like, there was men that were taking whole tribes and just murdering all the men and then dividing up the women from that tribe. Like, that was happening all over the place. It's happening in the Bible. So, I don't know.
Well, the way they view it is most people are footnotes anyway, so they don't count.
Held in high regard. So it's like an early example of female sexuality being used as this way to elevate women because it can be a weapon. Sexuality for women and seduction and fertility is a power that we have that men don't.
Yeah, until you invent another weapon called grape. I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, but yeah.
Don't have. We're the people who basically get to decide who gets to reproduce. Like I said, unless you're grabbing war brides or something, but that wasn't.
Yeah, like the grabbing war bride. She's trying to minimize that. See, it's like how many cultures had temple prostitutes? Not that many. How many cultures took war brides? Many. Like almost a lot of ancient people. Like, so I don't know. Pretty weird.
Most men through most of
it. A lot of Asian people and some modern people, as late as the 1950s, as far as I could tell.
Oh yeah, probably still happens.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, most of this stuff is probably underground. And I mean, let's admit it, most of this stuff is like porn, yeah, kind of just out there.
Yeah, I've heard stories of like Bosnia and Kosovo where they like invaded and they like raped a bunch of people. Like there's all sorts of stories of that, right?
We're the people who basically get to decide who gets to reproduce. Like I said, unless you're grabbing war brides or something, but that wasn't most men through most of history. And Lilith was.
I just want to clarify really quick.
Yeah,
So
sure.
temple prostitutes, I kind of.
Oh, that was weird. She said Lilith, and then they cut her off. It was weird. But yeah, man. Lilith. We're back to Lilith. So there's our friend, the Lillian. So let's see what happens.
Have a guess of what that is? Like,
Yeah.
is that a priestly woman that would participate in like a fertility ritual with men for some kind of like? Explain what that is.
Yeah, it kind of depended on the.
Oh, what? What the hell? Like, no, dude. Like, you probably went to the temple to like a bath, and then you had sex with these ladies. Like, I don't know. It's probably like
The culture
not that complex.
in the time, because it changed and it differed a little bit, but it was a religious sacrament of sorts in the pagan world. You'd go to the temple, you would meet with the temple prostitute, you would, have some kind of relations with her, and that would be a way to commune with the divine or a way to give an offering. And that's something that has continued, like the modern occult rituals are kind of based on that. They kind of take those ideas and use them in occult rituals, because that's all the occult is, really.
That just seems radically false. That occult rituals, like including.
I
like,
mean, I don't know, bouquet and what they call the Holy Grail of cum. So I mean, they do seem to put rituals out there. So I mean, I hate to say it, but most of hardcore porn is a ritual. So
yeah, but what I'm saying is that most of the occult rituals come from pagan rituals. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, they don't mostly come from
Probably that,
pagan
yeah.
rituals. They probably mostly come from Judaic rituals, if I had to be honest. I think so. They're mostly derived from Abrahamism.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, I want to make sure I understand. So where do they come from if not from pagan rituals?
Even our modern pagan rituals are mostly derived from Kabbalah. So
Yeah, I'm saying like to say like all the pagans around the world were all like saying like you need to have temple prostitutes. Like that's actually not true. Right? Like like that wasn't about like sex magic. To say all paganism is about sex magic, that's false. Right? Like there's a bunch of tribal people who were just they had nature and they had a god and they had a great spirit and and the river is good and the mountain is good and like not all of them were like, let's all sacrifice a bunch of babies and all around the world until Christianity came along. Like I don't think that's true.
yes, and the goddesses she's mentioning, I don't think most of them have temples anyways.
Yeah, like you gotta have a little more faith in humans than that. Be like, oh yeah, in ancient Greece, like everybody was just like sacrificing babies all the time or doing weird pagan rituals to like fertility. Like, I don't know. I think most people were just like living a normal fucking life. Like they ate fucking olives and shit. And they're like, whatever, bro. Like, I don't know. I think
I mean,
there's
that's assuming that the governments didn't demand them worship these false gods. But I'll give credit, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like when I read like Aristophanes, the clouds, like and Hermes comes along and he tells like people not to follow Socrates. Like Socrates, like they show him as like basically telling sons to not follow their father. So he's telling like kids to disobey their parents. It's like something as simple as that, where he considers it virtuous for children to obey their parents, for you to have national pride in Athens and all this type of stuff. He's basically laying down whatever virtues and stuff that modern people would consider good and what, it's not too different from what any society would consider good, right?
Yeah, and even if the state mandated that they did follow them, just lie. Just say, well, okay, I'll follow them, but just go through the motions and just don't do it seriously. Do it ironically.
Yeah, now there's spin-offs of pagan traditions that created cults where people would do that type of stuff, and then the government came and killed them. Of course, that happened all throughout history. But you're to say that that's a integral part of paganism and of any of these religions, or what about Chinese people, or whatever, where they sacrificing kids and stuff? No, people created ordered societies where if you if you go around fucking people and cheating and stealing and doing this stuff and stuff, they'll probably kill you, right? And all that stuff, or put you in a chain and put you, or whatever, even right.
Yes, in a cage.
Yeah. And I think it's good to believe that, because then
But is that really true, TML? I mean, in feudal Japan, if you had a only male child, I mean, it didn't matter whether it's male or female. If you offended your leader or anyone who's your authority, you had to commit seppuku, and your firstborn had to die too. So, I mean, isn't that not child sacrifice? I mean, I'm just saying, like, in my evidence, while it might not have been prevalent everywhere, at some level, everyone has sacrificed children at some level. So, while many factions probably frown upon it, I think they've just all gone underground. To me, that's my personal opinion. They can't do it in the temple steps no more. Now they can do it underground and, make movies about it.
Yeah, I expanded it to that. I think she's heavily implying that, but she is just talking about temple prostitutes. It's pretty obvious to me that not all pagan societies had temple prostitutes. But yeah,
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but yeah, I think there's a, on the much smaller point that she is making, I think she's totally wrong. But
is like a secretive type of esoteric religious practice that takes a lot of the ancient stuff like Hermeticism, paganism, and turns it into like ritual magic.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds, and welcome to my.
You've written that one of the earliest modern movements to bring these ancient goddesses back was a religion called, is it called Wicca or witchcraft technically?
Wicca is a type of witchcraft, so it's like a subset.
Got it.
Yeah.
So just maybe a theology known as witchcraft or religion known as witchcraft. Yeah. How do you define witchcraft, and how is it connected to feminism?
Witchcraft, I took a whole chapter on it to explain kind of the history of it and how it's always been a way for women who felt like they were outside of the competitive female hierarchy to have power, to get revenge, to think of the archetype of the witch, like the wicked witch with the big nose. She's always ugly and haggard. She's always dressed in black, wearing the pointy hat. She lives in a cabin off on the edge of the woods, away from the town.
Pretty ironic, but yeah, the thing is that
I've never met no witches like that.
Yeah, now she's directly talking about archetypes, so this is interesting.
She scares the children. She kidnaps and eats the children. And she think of Snow White, think of Sleeping Beauty, like all of the fairy tales that we have. The witch is always trying to hurt the young, beautiful maiden, trying to poison her with an apple, trying to steal her youth, steal her beauty. These are
Glenda Goodwitch, counterexample.
Yeah, there's probably a few of them, for sure. Probably wearing white instead of black.
Yep.
And whatnot.
But I'm sure there's
types exist for a reason.
Sorry, Hank, what was that?
I'm sure there's a subversion somewhere. If not, I'll write one.
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. There's definitely versions of that. I know there's some in like probably animes and stuff. But
apple, trying to steal her youth, steal her beauty. These archetypes exist for a reason. There's always been some women who don't compete well within the hierarchy for mates. So if you're a pretty girl that men like, you're charming, and men want to marry you, the system works great for you. But there's always this minority of women who for whatever reason, whether they're physically repulsive to men, maybe their personality type is very combative and unappealing for.
I think that's another like misinterpretation, because like the more powerful a witch is, the more pretty she'll be. It's actually a fact.
Yeah.
You know, like really powerful witches, they're not ugly. They actually look really nice, right? And they can hide their age too and shit like that. So it's pretty fucked up. You could be talking to a really old lady that looks really young and whatnot, and yeah, so it's fucked up.
And men pay lots of money to interact with combative women. Maybe she's heard of a dominatrix. I'm not sure.
Right.
Men, and they're kind of shunned by the patriarchy. That's like, ugh, go over there. We don't really want anything to do with you. We want the beautiful, young, nice girls that are going to make good wives. And throughout history, and this is not just according to me, there's a witch who teaches about this at New York University that I reference in my book. This is from her perspective as a second-generation witch herself, that those women have always gone outside of society and practiced witchcraft as a way to have some power, have some influence, get some revenge, take back what they feel they deserve, that they're not getting, that the rest of society is benefiting from. So this whole thing where men choose women and women choose men and they get married and they have a nuclear family, if that doesn't work for them, witchcraft is very appealing because it's always very anti-patriarchy. It's also very anti-Christian. It's a way to kind of fight back as a woman who the system doesn't work for.
That's right.
That's why we have the archetype of the witch. But in actual history, witches, everybody's heard of like the witch trials and, burning witches at the stake and things like this. And in the middle of the 20th century, there was this big effort to make the witch into a sympathetic character, starting with L. Frank Baum in The Wizard of Oz. Now, L. Frank Baum's mother-in-law was named Matilda Joslyn Gage. She was one of the prominent suffragettes, a good friend of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the two big figures.
Damn, look at Stanton, bro. Think she ate enough cheeseburgers?
Maybe a couple more.
That also looks kind of like a wig. Like her eyebrows.
It doesn't.
Really match.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's a real hair.
Like what?
She looked like she got a dick.
Yeah, but what the fuck? But yeah, yeah, that definitely is a very cartoonish wig.
Of women's suffrage. And L. Frank Baum lived with her for a long time and was very heavily influenced by.
Oh, bro, you know what's really weird, dude? That dude, that fed dude from last night, Sean. That dude had his eyebrows done. It was pretty weird and creepy right there, bro.
Oh yeah, I know this, Sean. He came on my show today. He wasn't.
No, not that Sean.
Oh,
no, not the pink circle guy.
Maybe we should be gracious and say he's got that hair plucking. I know someone who's got that. It's an actual mental disorder where they pluck out their eyebrows from stress.
I think
so
he said
maybe he's so stressed
Syrian
out
or something. He's like Syrian or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Hank. The other guy. Yeah.
The Irish guy with the bees.
I'll go get it. I'll go get
from
them.
Gen X Jeff, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think me and Neuro talked to him recently.
Her, and he wrote the character of Glinda the Good Witch after her. Now, Matilda Joslyn Gage wrote a book called
that's Sean. He accused me of I'm believing in conspiracies because I'm Muslim. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. But yeah, it was pretty weird.
Woman, Church, and State. And this was her explaining how she felt that Christianity and the state came together to oppress women, and that Christianity was the root from which women were oppressed, and that if we want to have real feminism and we want real women's liberation, we've got to get rid of Christianity. So when L. Frank Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, this was a big influence on him. And that was the first time that we've seen somebody try to make a witch into the good guy, basically. But then that kind of continued post-World War II, when the culture wars began ramping up again. We saw stuff like the old TV show Bewitched, where it's a witch named Samantha who's cute and adorable, and she wiggles her nose and casts spells, and she marries her husband, and her husband's always telling her not to use her witchcraft.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Yeah. The craft, you had the three bad witches.
That show Bewitched is pretty good though. Like there's a lot of weird stuff in that. That's like spiritualism and stuff. It's pretty.
Yeah,
I like that show personally.
And in the new Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the guy who plays as Ambrose turns around and died a few years later in a motorcycle accident. So
Isn't there a girl in that show that's a genie too?
No, there's a show called I Dream of Jeannie, and she's a genie.
I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh yeah.
It reminds you. It reminds you a lot, of the witch shows. But I can tell you from my experience, the low end witches here, they are a bunch of, no offense to them, fat and unattractive, woke generations. All the high level witches, the ones that I've seen, they all are really attractive women. So even I've seen that little fake witch, because there's a little group of women here who help out people with like boxes of stuff and clothes and stuff. And I would just put it this way, y'all, they don't know real witchcraft of, that's what they're practicing. I'll put it that way. Like, they got like little things made out of wood in their cars that hang from the mirror and think that that's doing witchcraft. And I'm like, that's not what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't doing crap. We're doing more witchcraft just being on the damn panel. Literally just connecting on the internet.
Well, I was told I was a warlock, but that was bullshit.
You don't use your witchcraft. You be a good wife. And that was another kind of cultural attempt. Marries her husband, and her husband's always telling her not to use her witchcraft. You be a normal woman. You don't use your witchcraft. You be a good wife. It's always cute. Adorable, and she wiggles her nose and casts spells, and she marries her husband, and her husband's always telling her not to use her witchcraft. You be a normal woman. You don't use your witchcraft. You be a good wife.
What the fuck?
And that was another kind of cultural attempt to say, if you read between the lines, it's saying, hey, women and their powers and influence, whether it's their sexuality or their spirituality, why should that be oppressed by bad men? Maybe the witch is really the good guy. Maybe she's the rebellious woman that's not going to let men.
Oh no, she didn't.
Yeah, well, I guess it's fun and games until you start having stomach problems all day, and then you find out you've been slowly poisoned after a few months. But yeah,
right.
Poison apple, apple pie. Sorry.
Right.
And then now, in the last few years, we have Wicked, which is this other big cultural phenomenon with Ariana Grande, and again we see a witch character who is really the good person, but is being painted as bad when it's unwarranted. And she's actually this sympathetic character who's fighting for what's right, and she's just misunderstood. So throughout all of history, it was never that way. Witches were persecuted, and people think that's because they were opinionated women. That's not the reason at all. If you actually go back and read some of the things that were being written around the time of the prominent witchcraft trials, a lot of the people who were, not saying that there weren't people who were wrongly accused or wrongly tortured or anything like that. There certainly were. But a lot of the people who were persecuted by the church for doing witchcraft were abortion providers. So witches had herbal remedies and knew how to do like kind of primitive surgical abortions and things like that. They had tinctures, they had herbal remedies to induce abortions, and they often did do ritual magic. That's where the broomstick comes from. It's a little graphic, but in my book, I explain where the idea of the witch riding the broom comes from. So in medieval times, there was a practice in witchcraft.
Come on, ride the broom and ride it.
If you have sex with a dead tree, then you only thing you put in there.
Right. Yeah, see, there you go. Like some coded language right there.
Using like, it wasn't LSD because that hadn't been synthesized yet, but there were like natural things like ayahuasca or other type of psychedelic drugs, hallucinogenic drugs. Mushrooms would probably be the primary one.
Oh boy.
They would make like a paste or a lubricant out of that and put it.
Hiawatha.
The size yet, but there were like natural things like ayahuasca or other type of psychedelic drugs, hallucinogenic drugs. Mushrooms would probably be the primary one. They would make like a paste or a lubricant out of that and put it on a broomstick and use it in a sex ritual. So your sex is all.
The wood ain't dead, it's horny.
Oh, baby. Don't try it at home, folks. Definitely.
Might get a splinter.
Yeah, definitely don't boo from mushrooms and ayahuasca. But
always the most powerful way to do ritual magic because the emotions are so heightened and the belief is that you can kind of access the divine through climax, through this heightened emotional state. So that's why almost every famous occultist you've heard of, like maybe somebody like Alice.
Is that why
Crowley,
God judges me every time I get a blowjob?
Yeah,
I'm just saying there might be some relevance to that. I mean, there might actually be. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a religious person, so I don't know.
Well, you got to get high and then do it.
Yeah, he's creating your mortal level.
No, it's even worse than that. Damn, it gets worse if I'm high. Especially since I've gotten older. I judge myself every time that we have sex and I have children, but it's like, I'm human, dude. It's either, it's not easy to be celibate. I'll put it that way. If you got a wife,
Yeah, get high and then do the deed, and then hold up a mirror and look at yourself and have a picture of this guy in the corner of the mirror. I don't know.
If you're married, you're supposed to be banging her.
Doing ritual sex magic. It's because it's supposed to be the most powerful type of magic that goes back to the temple prostitution, that goes back to ancient times. So witches would indeed use
witches would
hallucinogenic tinctures as like a lubricant and then use something like a broomstick and do ritual magic. And that's where the idea of flying on a broomstick.
Okay. I mean, Nimbus 2000, motherfuckers.
Get high on the broomstick. Get high on the broomstick.
Come, little children. It's just so retarded, dude.
Get high on the broomstick.
Hey, quick question. How many different...
Whoa. Why did this camera change so rapidly?
Flying on a broomstick came from.
Hey, quick question. How many...
What the fuck?
It's like they get high flying on a broomstick. And then it's like...
A lubricant and then use something like a broomstick and do ritual magic. And that's where the idea of flying on a broomstick came from.
Hey, quick question.
That was definitely on purpose. Dramatic
Nice
cut.
transition,
Dramatic
weirdo.
cut.
Yeah, what the fuck, dude? Nice transition, weirdo. Like, what the fuck, bro?
How many different AI tools are you using right
oh
now?
my god, dude! It's his little commercial. Weird. All right, that was an odd time for a commercial, dude. Honestly, getting high, flying on a broomstick.
A subtle way of saying what they were doing. Same thing with the pointy hat. The pointy hat actually comes from Kabbalah. A lot of medieval witches practiced Kabbalah, and there was like a black triangular kind of pointy hat that people would wear back then when they practiced Kabbalah, and that's where the witch's hat comes from. So,
wait, what? Wait, what? There's a pointy hat when you practice Kabbalah? What? Isn't there a small hat? I don't understand. But yeah.
But where does that come from originally? Like the pointy hat, like what does that symbolize?
I'm not sure what it symbolizes. There's a lot. You always see threes a lot, anything in threes. Even in Christianity, we have the Trinity. Three is like kind of a sacred geometry thing.
Got it. So it's a triangle.
Yes, it's a triangle.
That makes sense.
So from
no, it doesn't. But pointy hat's not related to Kabbalah. It's just what? It's just what rural people wore, like the pilgrims. So it's
right, yeah.
No relationship to Kabbalah. It's just the hat they wore, and we made the association later.
Yeah, that sounds about right, Hank. And I don't know. It's probably like some sort of gypsies or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
They were druids.
Kabbalah is where the witchcraft hat kind of originates from. And again, this
what? I don't know if anybody can fact check that, but yeah, I definitely need to ask like somebody. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Hyperborean or somebody would come in on this. This is weird.
This is not Rachel telling you as a Christian. This is me listening to lectures and reading books written by witches, modern day witches, who are telling you proudly what their heritage is. So if you think I'm wrong, you got to go take it up with them. That's what they told me. And a lot of witches were actually prosecuted for practicing witchcraft, doing spellcraft. Another really common reason a witch might have been persecuted or burned at the stake was they were the primary purveyors of poison. So if you wanted to poison someone, you went to a witch to get a poison so that you could poison someone, often men. So it's a really interesting historical fact that women have always used poison as like a primary means of unaliving someone. Whereas men tend to use more brute force, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and
say that to Elizabeth
as we
Borden.
developed.
Yes, so Angela Lucas keeps doing shows on how modern witchcraft is not, the genealogy is much shorter than they think. So it's not one show; it's multiple shows. It's like every other show she does. She's explaining how the genealogy of modern witchcraft doesn't go as far as they think it does, and most of it leads to Kabbalah.
Yeah, so let's see what else. It's getting pretty weird up in here.
Testing to identify if somebody was murdered with poison, poisonings went down. It's kind of interesting, but that was like a primary method. If you wanted an abortion, if you wanted to kill someone by poison, if you wanted to do ritual sex magic, you went to the witch who lived outside of town.
So if you had to break down like the real reason the witch trials happened, the burnings, like would you say that all the women accused were accused of those two specific things, or was the Catholic Church and the aristocracy like more mad at the actual magic they were doing? Like what were they upset with?
I think it was both.
Okay.
It was just that those were the things that were easier to prove. And again, I'm not saying there were not periods where maybe the Roman Catholic Church or the Puritans in New England didn't get hysterical and start persecuting people who were wrongly accused. I'm sure that happened. But another thing that happened during the witch trials that we never talk about is that at least 20% of the people who were burned or drowned as witches were men. So plenty of men got accused of witchcraft as well. And I think it was a time where you do have some political things complicating matters. The church is trying to.
That's the problem with their entire thing, is that, who led the occultist societies? It definitely wasn't the women. It was men who were leading these societies, right? So who controls the witches? Obviously the wizards and the warlocks. Like, they're not just on their own learning about the occult and then forcing it down people's throat by poisoning them and doing sex magic on them. That's not even happening, right? So usually the witches are controlled by their pimp warlocks or whatever. So it is what it is. Right?
Keep power and maintain power. That's true. But it was the belief at the time that if you had somebody who was doing these things, that maybe the wrath of God and his judgment is going to come upon you and your people. If there's somebody in the town performing abortions on a regular basis, we need to get rid of that. So from the perspective of the church, these were things that, were illegal. They were crimes and they needed to be punished. But yes, if you want to think of it this way, they had legitimate reasons for wanting to persecute witches. And then, at times it probably did get out of control. And there were probably a lot of people who were falsely accused. And it did become a vehicle for people to make false accusations. But the idea that there was no basis for it whatsoever, and this common trope that you hear now that, the witch trials were just awful patriarchal men who didn't like women who had their own brains and their own thoughts. And so if you tried to speak up about an injustice, they would burn you as a witch. That's historically not accurate at all. Yeah.
In reality, they were providing abortions and poisoning people.
Yes.
And people were concerned that would spread.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you never hear that. So that would make more sense.
Mhm.
I was always confused watching like the Salem witch trial, like plays or like movies about that. I was like, what was going on here? Like, were people just crazy? But it seems like part of the history was left out.
Yes, a big important piece was left out. And that happens all the time. I'm a super huge history buff. I always have been. And it's because almost any time that you have a super dominant historical narrative, if you go back and look, there are things that will challenge it. There are counter narratives. And it's really tough to find exactly what the truth is because it kind of does depend on who's telling it. And they say that, history is written by the victors and it's rewritten all the time. And I'm sure we'll talk about that with feminism and, we can talk about college textbooks and what they've done there. But yeah, if you go back, you can almost always find a counter narrative, and it takes some sifting through and some thinking about what was going on at the time, looking at the people involved, and who stood to gain from what to kind of form a picture of what's maybe more accurate. But there's a lot of history that we'll never fully know exactly what happened. As we get later into feminist history, I'd say from the 1700s on, because there was no telecommunications yet until, the early 20th century, we have extensive written documentation. So I do feel really, really confident that everything from 1700 to the mid 20th century, we really know what was going on because the primary way that suffragists and feminists communicated their message, talked to each other, that's all written. They wrote each other letters. They wrote pamphlets. They delivered speeches. They debated publicly. Actually, a lot of people think women were never allowed to speak. They weren't. Rachel, you're on a podcast right now speaking, and you couldn't do that if it wasn't for feminism. That's not true at all. Women were in the 1700s publicly speaking and giving speeches and, making a living, touring, talking about these things.
I do want to connect the Protestant Reformation and how it paved the way for the rise of feminism. But first, I'm not sure if
I don't know. I don't know. I think like if you look at liberalism and how it's spread like kind of like from Europe to the world, and like probably the first places that it existed was like Britain and France. And obviously for a long part of their history, those two places were controlled by the church. So I don't know, you know.
You've seen this stat. It was in 2002, only 30% of American women identified as feminist. And by 2020, that has doubled. And among Gen Z women, 68% of them identify as feminist. And at the same time, the fastest growing religion among Gen Z women in America isn't Christianity and it isn't atheism, it's witchcraft.
Yes.
Do you think the rise of feminism and the rise of witchcraft is a coincidence, or do you think they're the same movement?
I definitely think they're the same movement. So that's why in the book I take a lot of time to show the historical thread from ancient times through medieval times all the way till now. And of course, I'm not going to make it a 5,000 page book where I'm covering every single century of history. I just kind of weave some important moments together through the ages to kind of show it started as a spiritual battle. It's still a spiritual battle. And then the politics gets weaved in, of course. So Susanna Budapest, who is a Czechoslovakian witch, she was an immigrant here in the 60s. I think she actually came during World War II because she was escaping some of the stuff that was going on in Eastern Europe at the time. She was the first to get witchcraft laws overturned in the United States, in California, where she lived, under religious freedom clauses. And she herself, who is still around, I believe she's still around. She was around during Trump's last term, leading spell casting rituals against Trump with all her witches that are on Facebook and TikTok who follow her. She's a much older lady now, but she's still practicing witchcraft and, cursing Donald Trump with her.
It's like a 13,000 member Facebook group, I believe.
Yes,
it was like a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And they did it against Brett Kavanaugh, too,
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah.
What were they trying to accomplish? Just give him bad luck?
Yes.
Okay.
To prevent them from coming to power, prevent them from getting, their agenda passed. Because, of course, from their perspective, Donald Trump's going to enslave all the women and Brett Kavanaugh's going to enslave it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, I'm alone. Don't forget to eat your vegetables. Uh-oh. Gonna have to call Neurocrack. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you. I am a god now. I control it. Guy. Oh, look, it's another LARPer. Oh, this is awkward as fuck. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Yeah, buddy. Do, 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 do. Oh, there we go.
Finally. It's a pimp.
No, I lost service.
Real pimps get down on the flow.
Yeah, well, I'm still open to the whole radio frequencies play in your head, which is why random songs pop into your head.
It's all in my head. I think about it over and over again.
Uh-oh. Well, weren't wrong.
That was Nelly.
I live pretty close to a radio station, and I can tell you it is strange that it's like I'll be sitting here listening or making my own music, and then I hear a song from the past, and it's like, why the fuck is that in my brain? And I'm not hearing it. So I'm just saying. Have you seen radio waves? That shit's crazy. That shit really is everywhere in the air.
Yes, and it is connected to, what do they call that? It's alongside semiotics. It's cybernetics. I think it's somehow connected to that. Oh, good. Rachel Wilson's on screen. Let's all be quiet and listen to her. Is it playing?
Still
I can't hear
around.
anything.
She was around during Trump's last term, leading spell casting. Rituals against Trump with all her witches that are on Facebook and TikTok who follow her. She's a much older lady now, but she's still practicing witchcraft and, cursing Donald Trump with her.
It's like a 13,000 member Facebook group, I believe.
Yes,
it was like a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And they did it against Brett Kavanaugh, too,
yep.
I believe.
Yeah.
What were they trying to accomplish? Just give him bad luck?
Yes.
Okay.
To prevent them from coming to power, prevent them from getting, their agenda passed. Because, of course, from their perspective, Donald Trump's going to enslave all the women and Brett Kavanaugh's going to enslave it's going to be the Handmaid's Tale, right? That's what they think. So this woman said that feminism is just the political arm of a spiritual battle. That's according to a witch herself. She says this is a spiritual battle and feminism is just that political arm to help us with the political power aspect that we need to have the freedom to do things like practice witchcraft, abortion. That's a big one. When
No.
Roe versus Wade was overturned a few years ago and it went back to the states, there were multiple organizations, including Native American organizations, the Satanic Temple, and multiple Wicca and witchcraft covens who contested the changing of the laws because they said abortion is a ritual sacrament for them and should be protected under religious freedom laws.
We promise a tenfold refund if it doesn't.
Damn! So you got some fucked up teeth.
I don't know about you guys. She's spitting 100% facts right there.
What, that she needs new teeth?
No, man. You guys aren't listening. She's pretty much, she's like the queen, or like, you should just listen to her.
I already know this. I mean, no offense, but
What's
like,
wrong with you?
I've known for quite a while that people, no offense, not saying allegedly her, but high-profile women like her are most likely high-level witches. I mean, American Horror Story proved that to me years ago. So,
witches,
like,
I mean, they gotta
it would be
witches.
scary
They
if most people found out that most of them are the reason why there's so many, young girls being, prostituted. But anyway, I mean, there's a reason why I stay away from these dark cults, and why, I don't associate with certain people who do satanic things. So, like, what people see on the surface as, American Horror Story witch LARPs, like, there are some groups out there, like the other people we talk about, that do some really dark shit.
Rachel,
and it's not just men.
Rachel Wilson is an actor. You know what I mean?
Oh, she's actor by day, witch at night by night. How sweet. She's an ogre.
I think we should listen to almost every word she says, though. We could really learn a lot from the script instead of the template that she's a part of. That's way bigger than her. That she's a pawn. She's a pawn in the scheme, dude. She's a pawn. Talking about this, talking about that for, like, media attention or whatever the fuck. Gives a fuck what she says. No one in my real life has ever been like, hey, have you heard of Andrew Wilson or fucking like Rachel Wilson? I don't think they're even that big. These are just little icons. That's all they are. They're there to designate your consciousness towards what they're saying, which is all bullshit. It's a fucking scam. It's a LARP. They're actors. 100%. And they're selling you shit too. You should probably buy it. I don't know if you heard. You probably had a few commercials you missed I should tell you about. You know what I mean?
And I thought I was crazy. Continue.
This is not Rachel. People, off the bat, when they see me and they hear me start talking, they go, oh, she's one of those crazy Christians that thinks everything's the devil. Like I'm Bobby Boucher's mother in The Water Boy, and I think everything's the devil. No, I'm telling you, they're the ones who tell me witchcraft is a spiritual battle for feminism, for women's freedom, for revenge against the patriarchy.
You're saying that the church, it's a church of Satan,
Yeah.
is suing the state of Texas?
Yes, they did. They contested the change in the abortion laws.
Like the heartbeat bill?
Yes.
Because they see abortion as a ritual sacrifice, so it's necessary to their church.
Yes, exactly. And if you go on TikTok and you search the hashtag witch talk, you can find dozens of female creators on TikTok who will show you how to make a ritual out of your abortion. They'll show you how to make an altar, how to
I don't doubt that
use
whatsoever.
the tissues that are removed from you in a ritual magic spell, and ritualize your abortion to give you power, to give you things that you want in life. Like, this is, people think this is Rachel being crazy. It's really not. Like you said, witchcraft is the fastest growing religion, especially among Gen Z women in America, and they do mostly identify as.
She's exposing it.
I mean, allegedly, you got to assume she's not playing, double spy
She's
here.
not exposing it. She's not exposing shit, bro.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I knew a woman who had 5 abortions, and she was into witchcraft, and the last child she didn't abort was a girl, and she named it Lilith, and she became very successful and got away with thousands and thousands of dollars from the government by lying and claiming she was still a stripper, and the IRS never came from her. So either ritualistic magic is real, or she was really good at sucking dick. So I'm just gonna say, like, there are some people who seem to be associated with the Lilith witchcraft type mentality. Like I said, there was no excuse for her to abort those 5 children. There's no excuse. I've only had 1 child, and I've had sex thousands of times, and I've only gotten a woman pregnant once. So I'm just saying, I think after the second abortion, someone should be fucking castrated or fucking, not allowed to have children after a while. And I'm telling you, there was no excuse. It's not because, it was because she killed twins because she was cheating on her boyfriend, even though her boyfriend didn't care. So, I'm just saying, with this world mentality, like, everyone participates in these rituals. Even someone like me, like, as a man, do you know every time that you waste your sperm, you're technically performing an abortion spiritually, because you're supposed to use that seed to grow a life, and you're wasting it. So, take your pick on what you think God's going to judge you for, but some people honestly don't care. Like, some people really don't. I know a guy, like, he's been my best friend for years, and one minute he'll die for you, and the next minute he'll pull out a hammer and fucking threaten to kill you with it. So, and he'll tell me, fuck your Jesus, but turn around and believe in, all kinds of weird shit. So I'm just saying, like, people will do whatever they want. And when it comes to, like, the abortion stuff, I know someone personally. I'm just going to say it seemed like she used at least 3 of the abortions for real ritualistic magic. So just saying, like, some people really do. And it's kind of funny. She was really heavy into Harry Potter and was in love with Slytherin, the snake. So I'm just saying, some people really are weird. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the occultic themes with people seem to, the fact that she was a sex worker, basically, the fact that she, believed heavily in the Harry Potter universe and believed in witchcraft. And, if you saw what she looked like, she looks like those kind of, woke kind of people her age who heavily did witchcraft. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know a whole group of women who are like that. So, at this point, who's going to stop them?
I think she's pretending to warn people about it, though. She's trying to be
it could be a recruitment too.
Yeah, like trying to warm them up to the idea by pretending that she's.
The very first Freemason I talked to, he said, I was looking at the picture of the Freemason symbol on the back of his car, and he said, "Oh, you like that?" I said, "Yeah, I know what it means." And that's where that's when I realized, like, if you know too much, and if you're not, like, weird in that sense, they won't allow you to join. So it's the same thing with the witches. I'm telling you right now, I can go and have sex with a witch cult. You know why I don't? It's because I love my wife. Like, there are cults like that out there where, like, they will fucking drink your sperm out of your dick if you're attractive. They don't fucking care, and use it and spit it back out into a chalice. Like, there are witch covens out there like that. And you think, oh, well, it's a good dick sucking, but, like, if you're a spiritual person, it's bad. So take your pick. There really are witch cults and even some warlock cults. You don't think there aren't gay people who go out there and do the exact same ritualistic? Well, go to a fucking gay club. I'm not gay, and I'm telling you, I've been to one with friends, and it's disturbing. Not all clubs are like that. And that club is not supposed to be like that. You're only supposed to be allowed to go there and smoke your hookahs and drink your alcohol and party and dance to the music. But they will sit right there and take you back. Not me, but if you're gay, they'll take you right back there and suck your dick. And most of the time it's for fun. So I'm just saying there's really fucking strange cults of people out there who by day live and act a certain way, and at night they turn around and go and do a completely different act in the shadows. So just because you present yourself on a screen like her doesn't mean you're not freaky. There's a reason why in the Matrix movies, all the sex raves, notice all the raves they went to.
Part of me feels dumber for listening to her. You know what I mean? Like, I can't.
Well, because it's more or less when I hear stuff like this, it's for the ignorant people. It's not for people who should already be aware of like how prevalent witch cults and satanic cults and whatever kind of cults exist. Like if anyone has any type of occultic knowledge, I mean, if you've picked up one good occultic book from a library like I have, I mean, you're bam. It's different when, you have experiences with these places where they want you to join and become their sex pet. And then you're like, no, because I'm a Christian. So I went to some really dark places before, like, I got older. So I'm just saying, like, where most people divulge into the vampire parties, like in Blade, no thanks. I realize I like to stand for the light. So I don't know, man. I just think, this could be a recruitment thing too. The more that you talk about it, subconsciously people are going to want to join it too. So what man doesn't want to hear that you can have sex with a woman? And if it's the kind of woman who's doesn't have a problem gang banging with 5 dudes, it's a little bit harder if it's a woman who's not like that. Wants one man, wants to have a child and a meaningful relationship. But, there's a lot of people in this new age mentality who don't care about that. They'll just swing their legs open for anyone. That's why we have Tinder and other sites. Swipe left, motherfuckers. Maybe it's to get everyone to perform some type of weird, occult magic ritual, and they're able to like siphon the energy.
I mean,
I'm just saying, what's the point of pushing people into all this weird type of occultic magic Kabbalahism bullshit if there's not some type of ancient power that like pulls it all together or uses it, other than to slowly manipulate us and transform us mentally and emotionally and spiritually to get us to want to like participate in whatever goes on? I mean, just saying. Sorry, go.
Yeah. I hold some sort of an idea that if the Kabbalah can be used for that, it could also somehow be inverted or whatever and used for the opposite of bad. I'm not making any fucking whatever, like whatever.
Oh
dude.
boy, so as above, so below.
I don't think Kabbalah is like, dude. I mean, like, fucking. Do you even know what Kabbalah is? Does anyone here know what the fuck Kabbalah is? Go ahead and tell me. I'm ready.
I mean, personally, I don't think any human actually knows. And
by the way,
if you guys
those who do are allegedly Hyperborean. So what does that do?
Yeah, by the way, I've given tons of explanations on the show, right? They're basically pretty huge, right? Like 2 out of the Kabbalistic teachers that we noticed, right? They rely on a guy named Maimonides, right? Specific views of Maimonides and his version of God, and and how from the 11th century to the 15th century, there's many derivations of the Kabbalistic thought. Most of the thinkers were Jewish, right? From Abraham Abulafia to Isaac Luria. So there is some of the sources of the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah it comprises of 2 books. One is the Jazira, right, and the other is the Zohar, right? So I know exactly what the Kabbalah is.
I never looked. I mean, I got to the point where I was like, maybe I should look into the Zohar.
I'm not trying to shit on you, TML, but that's assuming that the information that they have fed us is not complete bullshit or fabricated. I mean, you have to assume that
I'm telling you right now, right? The Kabbalah is invented by Jews from the 11th century to the 15th century. That's a fact, right? It's based on their shit, right? Now, they can claim it came from earlier sources before that, right? And that other people had it, right? And of course, those sources are hidden, right? Those people hid the fact that they had it. This is what they claim, right? So I'm telling you, like, where, like, the Zohar and the Jazira, 2 aspects of the books that modern Jewish thinkers, right, from Orthodox Judaism, also from Hasidic Judaism, what they call the Kabbalah. So you can tell me I'm wrong if you want, but go ahead and look it up yourself. Whatever.
I just assume that all knowledge that's been given to us is most likely falsified. That's the open-mindedness I like to assume.
That's nihilistic because they're using obviously tons of knowledge against us. So how is that possible then, right? If all the knowledge is fake, how are they getting the knowledge that they're using against us, right? Like, for example, that they use to derive all the science and the technology. It can't all be fake, right?
I mean, yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
The way I ever understood Kabbalah, which is not a very deep understanding at all, but it was that it has something to do with a template of how individuated consciousness works for an individual.
Right, but they're mapping that consciousness onto how God's consciousness works, right? So it's like the man is a microcosm.
It does have to do with how does thought become material. It does have to do with that as well. But like, I mean, I couldn't tell you what they're doing. Like, I couldn't tell you what they're like. I don't know what at the deepest level.
They're doing. They're saying that there's a throne of God and a body of God and the spirit of God, and they can basically map it out, right? They can map out creation based on this mapping, right? So that's basically what they're talking about, right? But yeah, are they right? Right, when they say this is the cosmology and the metaphysics behind the creative principle, who knows, right? But one thing is that people like Newton, right, Isaac Newton, they studied the Kabbalah and they said it works and they used it to derive their scientific methods, right? So this is a fact, right?
Feminists, and they do think that from a spiritual perspective, these things are empowering. So that the reason I have an argument that is original to me when I debate people on abortion, and this will show you that what I'm saying is true and that this is how they actually feel. Because in the 90s, you probably don't remember because you're very young, but Bill Clinton would say abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, right? That was the progressive stance in the 90s. Now we have switched to my body, my choice, abortion on demand. You are not allowed to put any restrictions on it. No uterus, no opinion. And what this kind of proves when I put forth this argument, it goes like this. I'll ask a woman if she thinks abortion should be legal. She'll say yes. And I say all the way up until birth. And sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say, well, I would cut it off here. I would cut it off there. And I say, what about this? A woman goes in to get an abortion at 8 weeks. And the abortion doctor says, good news. We have new technology. We have artificial wombs. We've just created artificial wombs that are successful. And you don't have to kill this fetus. You can have it implanted into an artificial womb, and you won't have any legal obligation to it. You won't have any moral obligation to it. It's just going to be a simple laparoscopic procedure, no more risk than an abortion. And, the only difference is rather than killing it and removing it, we're just going to remove it alive and let it gestate and fully grow and be born. I say, if there was such an option as this available, would you then still be in favor of abortion? And I've not once had a woman say no. Every single time they say, I still think she should be able to choose to kill the fetus. And then I ask why. And they don't really know. And they're hesitant. It's like they know I've kind of caught them in a trap. They know it doesn't sound good to people that they just said that. But really what they're saying is women need power. And one of our greatest powers that we have is to decide who gets to live and who gets to die.
So it's weird, right? Because obviously, right, how much is Wilson in support of like a weird like future, which is like robots run or patrol the streets as paramilitary, right? Extensions of the state, right? But the fact is that he's basically promoted the concept of using artificial wombs to repopulate, right? So I mean, and now she's saying that artificial wombs are a good alternative to abortion. So it's pretty weird that they're promoting this type of technology.
This is like a deeply held ancient power struggle, and that women need the power to decide which men get to have babies and which men don't for any reason at any time. So it kind of just gives the game away a little bit psychologically, that even if they don't mean to phrase it that way, or even if they don't mean to put it that way, something deep in their brain is telling them, I need the power to decide who gets to be born. And that's like a very, very ancient concept it is a holy sacrifice type of a thing within witchcraft.
The people who pushed for abortion saw it as ritual sacrifice.
Yes.
And what does that mean exactly? Like, what was that sacrifice that they're doing? Like, what is that based off of?
Well, it is based off of these ancient esoteric belief systems, and it is based off of like this inherent need for women to have power. We not having the power on force, having half of the planet be physically weaker and smaller than the other half of the planet. If you take this view that means you're in danger, that you're going to be oppressed, that men can't be trusted, they have too much power, which is, that's something that's always stated as if it's a fact. And it's probably the thing I have to battle against the most. This inherent idea that men are just waiting to do bad things to women. Like, I've been on the Whatever podcast numerous times, and every time I'm on with a panel of young women, I always ask, if they could get away with it, how many men do you think would sexually assault you? Like, if men could get away with it, what percentage of men in America do you think would be out there sexually assaulting women whenever they felt like it, if they knew they could get away with it? And I've gotten answers like 50%, 80%, 100%. There's this thing programmed into us, and it comes from an understandable place. When you are the smaller, weaker sex physically, it makes sense to be nervous about that, to be worried about that. But in order to believe that all men are inherently, violent and wanting to do something bad to you, you have to believe that throughout all of history, men didn't want to protect their wives or their mothers or their daughters or their sisters, that men haven't fought entire wars in order to protect the women of their nation or their people group. And that goes against logic as well, right? But we don't think about that because we're in modern times, and we don't think about the barbarians at the gates trying to come in and steal all the women and take them off to be war brides. And that was historically a big problem and a major concern. So there is something baked into men that, hey, this woman is producing my offspring. I need to protect her. I love her. I want to take care of her. I want to protect and provide for her. So we forget that that's the primary thing that's baked into men, not this inherent desire to be destructive and violent and hurtful towards women. But what feminism has done, because it was deeply unpopular when it began, and women didn't like it. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton both write extensively in their memoirs about terrible women like me who didn't think feminism was going to be good for them. And they wrote that these women already have pretty much everything they want, and they do feel they're privileged in society. They can work a job if they want to. And this is the myths that people believe. They think women couldn't do anything, they couldn't own anything, they were just slaves. And that's because of pop culture stuff. But if you read the writings of suffragists, they say, some of the first universities in this country were women's seminaries and women's higher education colleges.
Right.
Women have enjoyed higher literacy rates in most places for a lot of American history. They have a lot of laws in place to protect them, to protect their assets when they enter into marriage. Like New York, for instance, had a law that if a woman came into a marriage with money or land or an inheritance, that her husband could not sell it or do anything with it unless he could prove to a judge that she authorized him to do that and that she was not compelled. So the judge had to not only, hear the man say, yes, she said I can sell this land. He would have to talk to the woman and say,
all right. So this is like an hour into this. This is pretty weak. So far, there's not much that hasn't been discussed that isn't painfully obvious. Or either over spun into a huge thing where it's just you can't really prove that much there, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Neuro's there, but just to wrap this up in 10 minutes, I do have to go, as I said. So let me message him.
you're not being compelled, you're not being forced, you're not being, you don't feel like you're being made to do this. This is your own volition that you want to sell this asset. And she would have to say yes. And women were afraid they would lose these privileges. They were afraid that they would be, by being made equal with men, we would have all these responsibilities on us that really aren't for us. And so in order to sell it to women who didn't want it, I think the Massachusetts referendum, only 4% of women who could even vote on whether they wanted the vote came out and said they wanted it. So it was really, really unpopular. For the first 75 years of the movement, it was deeply unpopular with women and had more support from men.
They had to ban women from voting as well on whether or not they could vote, right?
Yes. So there were multiple suffrage groups, and the two biggest ones stopped women from being able to vote on whether they wanted the vote.
So yeah, I mean, they could get into a lot. I'm really interested to know how Protestantism affected this stuff, or how the goddess worship affected this stuff. Obviously the modern occult is not based so much on paganism of the ancient times, other than rehashing of certain elements of it. So I don't know. So I'm not sure what exactly to derive from this. But yeah, it is The Occult Roots of Feminism. I do have the book, so I'm trying to figure out what the deal is, so we'll see.
Because they were just getting clobbered in every state that they had a referendum. It was just voted down unanimously by women. And they said, look, we just can't let women vote on whether they want to vote anymore because it's not going well for us, which I think is really funny. And people learn that and they're like, whoa, that's crazy. I can't believe that. But it's true. It did gain popularity. And by about 1920, it was a small majority of women who did support it. But you have to remember, this is a campaign that started in the 1840s. So it took them about 85 years of propaganda and massive amounts of money pushing feminism, and World War I. And the effects of World War I to get women on board with this. They really didn't want it. So this is where a lot of the myths about men being evil and violent and bad and you have to watch out because they're just waiting to hurt you and abuse you. That's where a lot of this comes from, is needing a way to get women on board. And you might wonder, why? Why would they want to push this so much? Who would want to push it? And a lot of the early support for feminism came from socialists and communists, aside from the occultists as well, who didn't like Christianity and saw it as this patriarchal, oppressive, archaic religion. Socialists and progressive area industrialists. So we're talking about these big families, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts. They wanted a progressive era batch of reforms, this whole big agenda that they succeeded in and that we're living under now, where you would have an income tax, you would have a central banking system, the Federal Reserve Act, you would have compulsory education system. So now the state is in charge of educating the children. And they needed numbers for that to get that passed. They also wanted things like welfare, massive welfare programs. They wanted open borders because these are the people who need, low-wage workers for their factories and to expand factories and to build railroads. So a great way to accomplish this is you get women voting, and they know that women are going to vote for safety and security over, freedom and liberty. They know that women are going to, you can weaponize maternal instinct to, pass welfare reforms, to get all these things passed. You could never get the progressive era agenda passed without women's votes. So those were the people who primarily financed pushing through the 19th. Women didn't want it. It came from socialist men, basically.
Who was the first woman to run for president in the U.S.?
That was Victoria Woodhull. She was nicknamed by the press Mrs. Satan at the time. And she was a pretty dubious figure. She's one of the feminist characters that I don't think you're going to hear a lot about if you go to a gender studies program, because she makes the movement look pretty bad. She was raised by her father, who was a criminal, and she and her sister were raised learning how to kind of scam people. They were snake oil salesmen. So they sold fake cancer cures to sick people. They did tarot card readings, fortune telling, things like that. And they actually had criminal warrants out for their arrest in multiple states. So they were always moving around a lot. And she was an early proponent. Now we're talking 1860s, 1870s. And Victoria Woodhull was very outspoken about wanting to legalize sex work, prostitution. She was the first to call marriage prostitution by another name, which later feminists like Andrea Dworkin and other radicals of like the 60s and 70s picked that up and ran with it, saying that, being married is just like being a prostitute. It's just that, you're getting room and board instead of cash, basically. And she wanted no fault divorce or some form of just legal civil marriage rather than this religious sacrament stuff. And she had some really wildly progressive views for her day. And she was the first to publish the Communist Manifesto in English in the United States and widely.
Oh, wait, who's she talking about? Is she talking about, Besant?
Feminist characters that I don't think you're going to hear a lot about if you go to a gender studies program, because she makes the movement look pretty bad. She was raised by her father, who was a criminal. Progressive era agenda passed without women's votes. So those were the people who primarily financed pushing through the 19th. Women didn't want it. It came from socialist men, basically.
Who was the first woman to run for president in the U.S.?
That was Victoria Woodhull. She was nicknamed by the press Mrs. Satan at the time. And she was a pretty dubious figure. She's one of the feminist characters that I don't think you're going to hear a lot about if you go to a gender studies program, because she makes the movement look pretty bad. She was raised by her father, who was a criminal. And she and her sister were raised learning how to kind of scam people. They were snake oil salesmen. So they sold fake cancer cures to sick people. They did tarot card readings, fortune telling, things like that. And they actually had criminal warrants out for their arrest in multiple states. So they were all.
Yeah, I've never heard of this lady. Victoria Woodhull. I'm not finding it either. Wait, what was her name again? All right, I'm not going to go back again.
always moving around a lot. And she was an early proponent. Now we're talking 1860s, 1870s. And Victoria Woodhull was very outspoken about wanting to legalize sex work, prostitution. She was the first to call marriage prostitution by another name, which later feminists like Andrea Dworkin and other radicals of like the 60s and 70s picked that up and ran with it, saying that, being married is just like being a prostitute. It's just that, you're getting room and board instead of cash, basically. And she wanted no fault divorce or some form of just legal civil marriage rather than this religious sacrament stuff. And she had some really wildly progressive views for her day. And she was the first to publish the Communist Manifesto in English in the United States and widely distribute it. Now, the way she got the money to do that, the way she got the money to open her own printing press and publish the Communist Manifesto, is she said she was told in a vision, in a dream, by an ancient Roman ghost that she needed to go to New York and find Cornelius Vanderbilt and make friends with him. So she did that. She went to New York and had nothing to do with her running from the cops in 4 different states that all had warrants for her arrest, I'm sure. But she went to New York and found Cornelius Vanderbilt, and she got into a network of prostitutes in New York who their Johns were mostly like famous Wall Street guys, rich traders on Wall Street. And she knew kind of the prostitutes that they frequented, and she would make friends with them, give them money, help them with things in exchange for intelligence, in exchange for...
Yeah, I see it now. She looked like she's like part of the Theosophical Society or something like that. Pretty weird. But yeah, I gotta sign off for here. I don't know where Neuro's at. I tried to message him. I do have to go for real, in a little bit. So I'll stick around for maybe 5 more minutes. Then I'll kind of just leave this here. But
spying on these rich Wall Street guys. And she went to Vanderbilt and said, look, I can kind of help you with some of your investments because I'm getting insider information from this prostitution ring that I'm a part of. Now, she also said that she was doing mediumship and fortune telling for him. Now, whether he believed in that or not, I couldn't tell you. But they gamed the stock market in the first big crash in the 1880s, and Vanderbilt made a fortune. I think $26 million in today's money. It was a huge amount. Everybody else lost their butt. And he came out like a bandit. And so the New York Times interviewed him and they were like, how did you manage this? Very interesting. I'm sure there was a lot of eyeballs on him and a lot of suspicion. So the New York Times wanted to interview him. How'd you do this? And he said, do as I do and consult the spirits. So he said that this fortune telling woman, told him what moves to make so that he made this massive fortune in the crash. But really, it was that she was getting insider trading information from a prostitution ring. So either way you look at it, whether you believe that he or Victoria believed these spiritual things, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know for sure. I think they did, at least to some extent, because spiritualism was really popular at this time in America. But I think they also knew it was a really good way to cover this kind of activity.
all right, there you are. You gotta be shutting this down. Shut it
Yeah, I
down.
can't hear you guys for some reason. So,
Oh,
but if you guys got to let it die, just let it die. I understand. I just can't hear you guys for some reason.
yeah, I gotta go. The fuck? But yeah, I messaged you, so I don't know. Holy cows, bro. Um,
I know.
I don't
All
know.
I can say is I'm not in a cult.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I gotta get up out of here. I'll wait, I guess, again for him to come back. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it looks like he came back. He couldn't hear anyone. I don't know what's going on. It is what it is. But yeah, I gotta get off of here and talk to some people on the phone and do some other shit. So I will definitely sign off of here in like 2 minutes if this dude does not come back. But yeah, honestly, what a strange video. Like, I don't know. If all of this information is in the book, then I mean, she kind of wrote this book like 10 years ago, didn't she? So it's like, is there like nothing for like a second edition or something like that? I don't know. But yeah, I looked up Woodhull now. I found her. So yeah. All right, y'all. Blessings, man. I gotta get the fuck out of here. This is don't know what's going on with Neuro, but yeah. Peace, y'all.
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, man. Do your thing. Blessings, man.
Yeah, like basically if we both leave the studio and there's nobody here, the stream will die.
It will.
So if
Okay.
nobody comes for like 5 minutes, just go ahead and do that.
All right, man.
Cause yeah,
I didn't even know that. Okay.
yeah, it's like automatic if nobody comes through. But
All right.
But yeah.
Blessings, man. Be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Peace, Lord.
All right, you hear that? 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all I can spare to play with you. Well, time's a ticking. Diggers are licking. And, get to what are you gonna do? What matters to you? People say that I aspire to the darkness, but one often has to walk through the darkness to find the light. Yeah, so whatever. LARP. Sorry, I got LARP syndrome. Right. If you LARP too much, you begin to believe it. He's beginning to believe the LARP. Okay, Morpheus. Okay. What are you saying? I can dodge condoms? No, Neo. What I'm saying is, if you weren't gay, you won't have to. Oh, okay.
What are we going to do? Kill Mufasa? Precisely. Him. And Simba, too. Great idea. No king, no king. La 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 la. Idiots. There will be a king. Hey, but she said, I will be king. Stick with me and you'll never go hungry again. Yeah, long live the king. Long live the king. King, 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 king. Oh, wait, that's right. I don't want to say that word too many times. It might be racist. Huh? I know that your powers of attention are as wet as a warthog's backside, but as thick as you are, pay attention. My words are a matter of pride. It's clear from your vacant expression. The lights are not on upstairs, but we're talking kings and secessions. Even you can't be caught unawares. So prepare for the chance of enlightenment. Be prepared for sensational news. A shiny new era is tiptoeing nearer, but where do we feature? Just listen to teacher. I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when at last I am given my dues. Oh boy, do I need to sing out the whole song. Just get ready for it. Yeah, we'll be prepared. Prepared for what? For the death of the king. Why is he sick? No, fool. We're going to kill him. Jesus! And Simba too, God, kill God, Mufasa. You get, the lion in the clouds. Our king will be all time adored. Of course, pit pro quo, you're expected to take certain duties on board. Yeah, the future is littered with prizes, and though I'm the main adversary, the point that I must emphasize is you won't get a sniff without me. So prepare for the coup of the century. Be prepared for the murkiest scam. Meticulous planning. Decades of denial is simply why I'll be king undisputed, respected, and third right saluted, and seen for the Führer I am. Yeah, well, if you got teeth and if you got ambitions, be prepared. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, Ice Cream Man went by. I'll get my drumstick licked later. All right, your 5 minutes is up. Go throw away some trash, help an animal out, feed an animal, give it some water, some food. Be kind to one another to the best of your ability. The world's cruel enough. Or you can be ravagous animals and tear each other apart. I mean, it's probably going to happen anyway, given evidence. So, Dr. Kelson says, memento mori, and good luck out there.